tell you something?
David's got it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. I don't want you to forget.
Yes, okay.
If you think you woke, you wrong. You are free. Hey, wake up. Hey, wake up. Ow. You know, I like being here. I certainly do. Yes. You know, this is Labor Day weekend, which means a lot of people out there enjoying the great outdoors, and they're not in here. But, you know, you are, and I appreciate you being here on this day. Now, Labor Day, of course, is supposed to be honoring those who labor. That's most of us. And because we are supposed to be honoring those who labor, it makes me think, do we really honor those who labor every day? No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't honor the working people. You know, I think sometimes that someone has a tongue in cheek when they talk about words like Labor Day. You know, Oklahoma's state motto is labor conquers all things. And I say organized labor conquers all things, right? Because we had a governor not too long ago who said, no, we're going to make Oklahoma a right-to-work state. And that meant no organized labor, to get the unions out of here. You're just going to work because we're good people, and you don't need to be protected by something like organization. But we all know that that's not true. And if you are a part of a union, amen. And if you're not, start one. It's important to be organized, because folks out here are thinking about the bottom dollar. But I didn't want to preach about that. I wanted to honor those who labor, because it's not the work you do who makes you the work you do. It's the person you are, right? And we have to remember that we are not, the work you do is not who you are. It's the person you are. So I wanted to get into that person. This is the start, well, these next week will be the start of our church year. That's, the Unitarians have it right, I think. September to May, we're in church, and then the summer, well, you know, we gather the crops, you know, that sort of thing. But you know, in the start of the church year, you know, it's a lot of Unitarian Universalists sending messages about get ready for this coming year. So we're in the southern region of the UUA, and the southern region has as its lead a woman named Natalie Briscoe, who is a wonderful human being. Natalie sent out a message to the ministers in the southern region, and she encouraged us to make this year a great year. And she talked about the things that are important in our lives, which are forms of love. You know, love is what we're all about here. But, you know, she broke it down into what are some forms of love that we need to pay attention to. So I want to speak about that. The first one is compassion. And I got a story about compassion. Compassion is how you feel toward another person. As you know, I am blind, and that means that sometimes people want to help me. And it's important to respond to that. You know, you don't say, I don't need any help, get out of here. You don't do that, you know, because people are trying to be courteous and compassionate. So not too long ago, the day that we voted, as a matter of fact, I went over to here. This is where I vote. So I came to All Souls. I voted. I'm feeling really good. The people who were there, the people who were there to respond to those of us who voted asked me sweetly, do you want one of us to help you to vote? And I said, no, there's a machine that I want to use. And they said, oh, yeah, that's right. We do have a machine. And so they didn't know. Everybody who was there was brand new. And so everybody was being kind and courteous. And so it's okay. They brought it out, and they didn't really know how to work it, but they called some folks, and the folks were telling them what to do, and I voted. And so I was happy. I got my I voted stamp on my chest, and I checked out. I walked out, and I said, I'm going to walk home. I don't live too far from here. And so I started walking down Peoria on the sidewalk, and I was making it work, having a good time, swinging my cane. And then I realized, uh-oh, a car just went in front of me. And then another car went behind me. And I said, I must be in the street. And then this lady said, are you all right? I said, am I in the street? And she said, yes, you are. Stay right there. Don't move. And so all the cars stopped. And she got out of her car and got me. She said, where are you going? And I said, I'm headed home, but just get me to the south side of 31st Street. And she got me to the other side of Peoria, on the east side of Peoria, but that was okay. See, it was the south side of 31st. It was just on the other side of where I wanted to go. But it was okay, because, you know, people are really friendly in Tulsa. Every single time I'm walking with my cane, either with a cane coach or by myself, every single time people have come up to say, do you need any help? Which is really compassionate. Tulsa is a very compassionate city when it comes to helping people, right? So she got me to the other side. I got to the other side, and then I was walking down the south side of 31st, headed west, and I heard, Reverend Gerald. And I won't call the person's name because I didn't ask them that I could call their name. And I said, hey. And they said, let me take you home. And I said, no, it's all right. I'm using my cane. I got to do that. And they said, are you sure? I said, yeah, I got it. It's good. It's all good. So then they drove around and came up to me and said, Reverend Gerald, get in the car. I said, no, man, I got to walk. I got to walk with my cane. It's going to be all right. Reverend Gerald, get in the car. I said, no, it's okay. It's all right. I'm all right. So then I kept on going, and then another person came up. Reverend Gerald, you need a ride? I said, no, I'm fine, for real. I'll be all right. I got my cane. I'm going to get home. It's going to be okay. All right. And then this other guy came up. He got out of his car. He said, you know, I'm a politician. I ran for office. And he said, let me take you home. I said, no, I really do need to do this. I got to use my cane. And he said, well, then I'm going to follow you. I said, okay, if you insist. And so I started walking, and I made it to another street, and I crossed over to get on the north side of 31st. By the way, people don't know their directions in Tulsa. They don't know north, south, east, west. They're good people, but they missed that lesson in school. So this lady pulls up, and she says, where are you going? And I said, I'm going home. And she said, I said, I'm on the north side of 31st Street, and I'm going home. No, you're not on the north side. I said, I'm not? No, let me park my car and take you over to and she took me to the south side. And the person who had been trailing me, who said, I'm going to trail you, he got out of his car and said, she told you wrong. This is not the south. I said, well, that's what I said, but she sounded nice. So I did what she wanted me to do. So he walked me back over to where I needed to be. And so I started walking. And he said, I'm trailing you all the way. Well, he did. He trailed me all the way home. When I got home, he honked his horn, and he said, I love you, Reverend Gerald. And I said, I love you. And I said, that's the compassionate part of Tulsa. If there's a single person who needs some help, we're right here. Now, when we're talking about justice, well, we'll talk about that later. So anyway, so compassion is a very essential form of love, being compassionate. Right? Well, there's also the idea of empathy. Empathy is not just being compassionate, but empathy says, I see you. I understand you. Part of me is part of you. And that empathy is so important in how we deal with one another. When we stop and listen to people and listen to what they're saying and speak to what they said. Start where they are. Speak to who they are. Empathy is huge, but we don't always use that empathy. We think sympathy and being compassionate, but empathy is getting into the fray, getting really into it. That understand what you're saying, and that is not always what we hear. But that's an important form of love. So when Natalie Briscoe sent this out, she was challenging us as ministers to these forms of love. That's what we're all about. Well, this is how you do it. So empathy is huge. Another one that she said is huge is forgiveness. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a really hard one for me, because I get insulted. I'm not going to forgive them. I'm going to my fists double up like I can see. But then I understand that if you don't forgive, you're carrying that burden with you. That burden is heavy because you're angry and they shouldn't have this and they shouldn't have that. But they did. So we're going to have to forgive their ignorance, forgive their not knowing. Maybe they didn't know. But you cannot carry that in our hearts. So if there's anything that you remember from this sermon, hold on to that forgiveness. I think about Charleston, South Carolina, and Mother Bethel AME Church, and the guy that walked into the church while they were having Bible study and sat there and listened to the people talking and then pulled out a gun and shot them, killed them, right? Except for one person, because he wanted that person to tell the story, right? So that person who did that was he did a horrible thing. But all the relatives of those people, including the relative of the minister of the church who was there, all of the relatives said, we forgive this guy because this guy just didn't know. And I said, that was hard. That is hard. And we have so many gun violence going on in this country right now. My goodness, all the time. But we cannot say, okay, let me get a gun so that I'll be armed and dangerous, right? We can't do that, church. I want to call you church. You know why I'm calling you church? Because the word for church, the Greek word for church is ekklesia. And ekklesia, like ecclesiastical, ekklesia means called out. Those are the folks who are called out. So that's why I'm calling you church, because you were called out. You could have been at your lakeside home, or on the golf course, You could have been that, but you're not. You were called out to be here. So I call you church. Hey, all right then. So, but here it is right here. When we forgive, we take that burden off of us. We're not having nightmares and gun shooting kind of thing. I'll get even. We can't do that. We can't do that because then nothing progresses. There's that light that Marlon was talking about that is shooting through all of us. That light is what unites us. And there are some people that are dodging the light. They don't want to be connected to all of us. But that's okay because you can't run from the light. The light's going to find you. And eventually you're going to feel it. And when you feel it, you say, I was ignorant. That's what I was. I did not know. That's what ignorant is. I didn't know. And so now that is an important part of who we are when we forgive. So another thing, though, is justice. That's the other form of love that our lead in the Southern region, Natalie Briscoe, wants us to understand. Justice. And we know that justice is love in public. Justice says that we can't just say, Okay, I know something that happened 100 years ago, and I don't want the current people of Tulsa to pay for something that happened. No, this is not about the paying for. This is a city government. We are the government. We are the people, and we need to pay for what happened in 1921. Now, that's it. No, we need to do it. As a matter of fact, when the Tulsa Race Riot Commission that came out in 2000, when that report was issued, that was a group that had worked and studied, got all the information, noted people, academics, politicians, as well as historians, people of the community. All those folks who worked on that report came up with recommendations for the legislature. They said, this is what we need to do. The number one was pay the survivors and the descendants. Now, at that time, there were over 100 and some survivors who were still alive, and descendants, of course. But the legislature looked the other way. They didn't do that. That was the number one recommendation. The number two recommendation was scholarships for those people living in predominantly African-American neighborhoods. So you look at the zip codes. And in Tulsa, let us be real about that, it's still segregated. It's not like it used to be. We know that. It's not like it used to be, but it's still segregated. You deal with 74106. You look at the health consequences, the difference between 74106 and the rest of Tulsa. It is huge, the health consequences. That's not good, church. That's not good. We can't let that happen. Well, Justice says scholarships for those kids living in that zip code, maybe not a full tuition, but they could go to any college in the state of Oklahoma. That was a recommendation. That didn't work. And then they said a monument so that we will not forget. A monument so that folks won't forget. Now, I know we have Greenwood Rising that, frankly, I call that trauma porn. Because it's about 1921 and you can go through all of that horror, you know. But we need to do something that will make us think about the future, right? So that was an important thing, a monument that will give us that hope that we can go on. And then, of course, economic development in North Tulsa. Not around North Tulsa, but in North Tulsa, economic development. And that is a huge thing that we're still trying to work. We still got only one grocery store in North Tulsa. But we need to have more. We need to have more economic development. And I take a deep breath because it's coming. Gentrification is coming to Greenwood. And I want to have gentrification. Well, okay, businesses, that's fine. Homes, that's fine. But let's have also middle and low-income housing so that folks can live in this place that was once there, right? See, that's justice. That's justice. When we have, and those were the recommendations that were given to the legislature. But the legislature just turned the page. I was there along with, I can tell this story, Marlon offered a van to us to drive down. Now, us meaning Church of the Restoration, where I pastor. So a group of us from Church of the Restoration got a van from All Souls, and we drove down when that report was issued. Now, I can tell you, I was there, and at that time, I could see, all right? And the president pro tem of the Senate and the House Speaker were there. And they were trying, and they had the reports there. And so we made sure we had a report. But I want to tell you, they got out of there faster than they could. They left. They said, well, here you go. It's over. Get out of here. And they got out of there. But our mayor, Susan Savage, at the time stayed. And she spoke. She was the person who spoke longer than anyone else. She talked about, we never knew this growing up in school. They never talked about the 1921. And she said then, we will do something, we will get this done. Now, of course, Susan said that at Oklahoma City. By the time she got to Tulsa, they said, stop it, stop it, stop it. Don't you dare say what we're going to do. And she couldn't do it. She wanted to, but they stopped it. Now, church, justice has to come to Greenwood. It's time. It is, and we can go through the courts, or we don't have to go through the courts. If we can't make it through the courts, we have to use that moral fabric that we all have there, that place that says that we're compassionate and we have empathy and we forgive. Yes, we forgive, but there is still justice that has to be done. So I am saying that it is not good that we have not done enough for Greenwood. When you wipe out that many people and wipe out those businesses, you can't just turn your back and say it's gone. But we need to have that kind of leadership that says we will get it done. So think about that when you go to the polls. Now, well, that's justice. The other thing that Natalie Briscoe said that we must have, these forms of love, is courage. Ah, the big C word, courage, because that is lacking. Whenever we're talking about getting things better, you know, let me tell you something about how things are not better right now. I know we're talking about education, and we got a idiot who is trying to, you know, take over. You know, this is not partisan. This is just frankly idiocy. I mean, he's got his own issues to worry about from what he was doing. But he wants to do what he's trying to do because he thinks as long as I keep saying the woke people, see, using those words, no, that's why we got to push back and say, no, it's not about being woke, it's about being free. I am free to tell the truth. And the truth says that education is important. But in this city of Tulsa, there's a proxy that if you want to find out poverty, go look at free and reduced lunches for children. Go into the schools and find this out. This is what was found out. In average African-American child going to school in Tulsa, 81% of those children have free or reduced lunches. 81%, okay? If you're Latino, it's 72% have free or reduced lunches. But if you're white, it's 55% who have free or reduced lunches. That's called segregation. That's what it is. Because if your school is primarily black, that's what's going to happen. And that's what poverty is about. We still have not got rid of this disproportionate aspect of living here, right? In Tulsa, we want to say this is America's most beautiful city. We want to say this is a lovely place. And I've already said it's a very compassionate city. But when we come to justice, people stand back and say, well, I don't know about that. But we have to do it. Now, I have faith that those babies that just walked out of here, they're going to know better. Because all around them they have this understanding that we are the ones we've been waiting for. We're the ones that are dreaming these big dreams. Of course, dream the dream and make it happen. It can happen. So it is important for us to have what we call courage. Courage. Now, courage is what we call after the event. They say, well, that was courageous. You had courage. But when it's going on, you just do it. You're not thinking about, oh, I'm doing this because I'm courageous. No, you're doing what is right. You're doing the right thing. And I don't know if you're going to make it through the end. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the end, right? But I know this, that I'm going to stay on this battlefield because love is a battlefield, isn't it? Love is a battlefield. It is. It is. It takes work. It takes labor to make this thing work. Love is working. We have to work it. We can't just say, oh, I love everyone. No, we have to make it work. We have to make that love work. And I know we can do this, church. Also stands for that. That's why we don't mind saying that love is the, what? That's right, spirit of this church. I'm used to people talking back to me. They might say, but at least they let me know. I'm a blind man. I can't see you, so y'all got to talk to me. Love is the spirit of this church. That's right. Love is the spirit of this church. That's the thing. That's the light that Marlon was talking about. that is coming through and touching all of us, and that which unites us. That's why I'm a proud Unitarian Universalist. Yes, I am. I grew up a Baptist. Amen. I grew up a Baptist. My grandfather was the pastor of the church where we all attended. I never knew my grandfather. He died before I was born. But his name was right there on the cornerstone, Reverend P.T. Davis. And so this was our home church, right? And it was a little kid. I'm a little kid. I'm 9 years old, getting ready to be baptized. And I'm saying, but I don't believe all of this stuff. You know, I'm wondering about this. And my mama says, shut up, go to church. You know? And so I did. I did well. I was a good kid, right? I did. But there was always that doubt. But, you know, I got to this place called the University of Tulsa. And the University of Tulsa had on its campus a place called Canterbury Center for United Ministry. And that Canterbury Center for United Ministry is now called the Little Blue House. But on the outside, it said, you know, all the folks that weren't Baptists, weren't Methodists, weren't Catholics, right? It didn't have that, but it had Moravians. We didn't know what a Moravian was. It had Presbyterians. It had Disciples of Christ. It had the Fellowship Congregational. They had that. And it had Unitarians. And I said, wow, these are all the others. You know, they're part of that, all the others, you know. Well, that Little Blue House told me through the campus minister, Thad Holcomb, that it was okay to have a belief that didn't side with the denomination that you grew up in. And so I did. And when in college, I became much more free. Now, I wound up becoming a minister and going to a Presbyterian seminary, but it was a Presbyterian seminary that was really broad. And they were saying, we want everyone to come. So we had folks from Africa, from the Caribbean, from Asia. All these folks were there, from Sapulpa, Oklahoma. All these people, all these folks were there. And we were having a good time. The most noted graduate of our seminary was Fred Rogers. You know, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, he was the one we said, let's do it for Fred. No. we were taught in a very open way, a way to think freely. So when I came out of seminary, my mind was not Baptist way of thinking. I can tell you this, when I was ordained, the ministers scratched their heads about me. You know, they said, well, you have all these kinds of thinking. I said, that's called theology. And I have my own theology that meshes with how I believe. Well, they said, well, he's leaving the country, so we can ordain him anyway. But when I became a UU, then I finally felt free because there were folks like me. It wasn't just me by myself. I had other folks who thought the same way to be free. So it takes courage, church. It takes courage to be who you are. Be the person you are. And that's okay if you don't have a whole lot of people backing you up. Just come on here. Because when you get here, you'll have that. All right? Thank you.